Welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council. This meeting is being held remotely and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. Inverclyde Council is a joint data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations of Data Protection Act 2018. The meeting will be broadcast to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during this remote meeting will be retained in accordance with Council public policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Thank you. Do we have any apologies or declarations of interest for the speaker?
Promise, we have apologies from Councillor Jackson and Councillor McCluskey. Move to roll call.
Yes, please.
Can the following councillors indicate if they're present at the meeting? Councillor Armstrong.
Present remotely.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in the chambers.
Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present chamber.
Councillor Clockerty.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
Present chamber.
Councillor McCormick.
Present remotely.
Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Provost McKenzie.
In the chamber.
Councillor McVeigh.
In the chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
In chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Chamber.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you. Members, pleased this afternoon to be joined by members of Scottish Fire and Rescue, who feature on the agenda this afternoon. Due to their presence here and not wishing to continue any longer than need be, I would intend to move agenda item 14 up to after agenda item number 63. Is that permissible?
Agreed.
Minutes of meetings of Inverclyde Council committees, subcommittees, panels and boards. The planning board meeting of the 7th of June, pages 173 to 187, council meetings. Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The local review body of the 7th of June, page 188 to 192, council McVeigh. Thank you, and the otherwise minded. Thank you. Inverclyde Council, 8th of June, 193 to 198. I will move to that for true and proper minute. Is anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The General Purposes Board of the 14th of June, 199 to 200. Councillor Cullen, please.
I move this as a true record, folks.
Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The appointment panel, head of fiscal assets, shortlisting, 19th of June, page 201, Councillor Clockerty.
I move this as a true record, folks.
Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The General Purposes Board, the special meeting held on the 28th of June, page 202, Councillor Moran, please.
I move this a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The Environment and Regeneration Committee special meeting held on the 28th of June, 203, 204, Councillor McCormick, please.
I move the minute as a true record, Provost.
And thank you, Councillor McCormick, and the otherwise minded. Thank you. Appointment panel, head of fiscal assets interviews. I think we've done that one. No, it's again.
No.
Head of fiscal assets, 29th of June, page 205, Councillor Clockerty again, please.
I move this as a true record, folks.
Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The audit committee, the 29th of June, page 206 to 208. Councillor Wilson, please.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
I'll stay in my feet for the next one.
Thank you. The local police and fire scrutiny panel, 209 to 10.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise minded trying to read both these minutes? Thank you. The planning board on the 2nd of August, 211, 212. Councillor Property?
Yes. I'll move this as a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise minded? Thank you. The local review body held on the same day on the 2nd of August, 213, 214. Councillor McBain, please.
Move that's a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise minded? Thank you. Policy and Resources Committee, the 15th of August, 215, 218. Councillor McCabe, please.
Yeah, I move the minutes to true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise? Thank you. The Audit Committee, 22nd of August, 219. Councillor Wilson, please.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise? The General Purposes Board, page 220. Councillor Moran, please.
I'll move it to true record, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. The Social Work and Social Care Scrutiny Panel held on the 29th of August, page 221 to 224. Councillor Brennan, please.
I move it as a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise? Thank you. The Environment and Regeneration Committee held on the 31st of August, 225 to 231. Councillor McCormick, please.
I move the minutes as a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise? Thank you. The Education Communities Committee, the 5th of September, 232 to 236. Councillor Property.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Property. Is there any otherwise minded? Thank you. The Planning Board held on the 6th of September, page 237 to 240. Councillor McVeigh, please.
I move that true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise minded? The Grants Subcommittee held on the 11th of September, 241 to 258. Councillor Brooks, please.
Thank you, Provost. Move as a true record. We also see that with 110 decisions, and thank the members for coming into the chamber to do it with 20 votes. So it's fantastic. Much easier for me to chair it when we're in chamber. So I'm much appreciated to members of the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Is there any otherwise minded? Thank you. The General Purposes Board held on the 13th of September, 259 to 60. Councillor Curley, please.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise minded? Councillor Wilson?
Provost, there's an aspect in this minute that I would like to discuss. I don't know if the moment time is appropriate. I leave that in your hands.
That will be in the private session, Councillor Wilson. And after this meeting is concluded, we will go into private session where you can raise your concerns.
Thank you very much, Provost.
The Policy and Resources Committee meeting held on the 19th of September, 261, 265. Councillor McCabe, please.
I move the minutes to true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there any otherwise minded? Thank you. The local fire, police and fire scrutiny panel held on the 21st of September, 266 to 268. Councillor Wilson, please.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Is there any otherwise minded? Thank you. Members, since our last council meeting, we have lost here in Inverclyde two people who were very community activists, pillars of our community. I of course refer to former councillor Jim McLeod and Mrs. Nell McFadden. Councillor McLeod was councillor within Inverclyde from 2007 to 2022. He made an immense contribution during that time, particularly in the field of health and social care, where he brought much of his own experience to the table. He was very much a champion of the disabled in our community, and he was involved in organisations such as Partnering, Branching Out and others. He fully contributed in his job as a ward councillor, and those of us who worked with him in that respect will testify to that. In Port Glasgow, where he served predominantly, he was greatly loved and respected. Mrs. Nell McFadden was a very fine lady who became a community activist very late in life. She was a founding member and chair of the Inverclyde Elderly Forum, a founder member of Your Voice. She was made an MBE in 2002 for services to older people by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, and she was appointed the Council's Joint Older People's Champion in 2015, the same year that she enjoyed being chieftain of the Guru Highland Games. I'm pleased to say that the Council was well represented at both these funerals, which took place consecutively last Wednesday afternoon. It would also be remiss of us at this time if we were not to acknowledge the passing of Mrs. McCluskey, the mother of our fellow councillor Martin McCluskey, who I understand funeral was today. And our thoughts are with Martin at this time. Before I ask for any other personal tributes, I think it would be fitting if we were upstanding for a moment of quiet contemplation. Thank you, members. Please. Would any member here to contribute to these predictions? Councillor Robertson?
Thank you, Provost. Our group do extend your group our thoughts to Martin and his family today, especially of his mum's funeral. And in terms of Neil, I haven't prepared words for Neil, but I always said, and I think I shared it at her funeral last week with some people who were close by me, that when I grew up, I wouldn't be Neil McFadden. And actually, a lot of the things that I prepared today for Jim, I could equally say for Neil, because I kind of knew them in a similar vein for much of my earlier life. I had quite a cathartic opportunity to write some words about Jim in the Telegraph just after he died. I do feel a little bit blessed to have a second chance to bring out some of the many thoughts and memories that I have there that I couldn't squeeze into the meagre 700 words that I'm allotted every fortnight. I first met Jim when I worked in the Trust. I was a fresh-faced 22-year-old and he was a wee bit older. Heavily involved in the community forums which existed at the time, and also the new Inverclyde Council on Disability. Jim was determined, he was passionate about doing right by people, and he was the single biggest wind-up merchant that I had ever come across in my reasonably short life. I moved into the Regeneration Partnership office a couple of years later, and at that point Jim was still pushing forward for improvements. He was breaking down barriers whenever he saw them and fighting on behalf of his community. Jim and another Port Glasgow legend, John Sharp, some of you might remember John, started calling me the wee Polis at that point because of the job that I had in the monitoring and evaluation of the SIP programme. So I just had to accept that even in my new role, the winding up was far from winding down. As someone who worked across the partnership of Inverclyde, I always had and still have the utmost respect for people who voluntarily give up their time to support their communities through community councils, which we're going to be discussing later on this evening, the former community forums and other locality-based groups. Jim was an absolute stalwart of this sphere of influence. His energy and commitment was always on show, and he had a willingness to fight when necessary, which was equally evident. In 2007, Jim was elected to the council, where he continued to influence, continued to seek improvement, and continued to fight right up to the end. Some of you might recall many pleasant moments that he spent fighting with Jim. I'm sure that he'll be someone remembering them fondly too. Probably some more of a lover than a fighter. You'll know that. That probably frustrated Jim in the end, to be honest. But I think we balanced each other out, not only in terms of those particular characteristics, but Jim reminded me daily about the practical nature of kindness. You've got to do it. It's not just a feeling or a concept. You keep on doing it. Even when things are less than ideal for you, as they progressively were for Jim, you keep on being kind to other people. I don't speak about Scottish independence in this chamber much. That's probably something else that frustrated Jim about me. But we all know that it was at the heart of what he believed. And where he and I were absolutely aligned is that we both believed that there was a route to achieving a more socially just society. I was proud to know Jim through all those years, from being a fresh-faced 22-year-old to what I am now, which is neither 22 nor fresh-faced. And even when Jim was winding me up, I was proud to know him then. And I was proud to serve in here beside him. We're lucky if we have colleagues that we can genuinely work with, and I think we are. But I feel really blessed, and I know that others from our group, past and present, feel similarly. That Jim was someone that we didn't just work with, he was someone that we liked and respected, both as a colleague and a friend. We've lost a friend, and Inverclyde's lost one of his best friends. Thank you, Pro.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Very thank you, Mr. Reid. Councillor Kate.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Obviously, in terms of Dale, she was a wonderful woman. I think everybody who knew her was affected by her infectiousness, and those of us that were fortunate to attend her funeral last week, I think understand the challenges that she had in her life. But when she came later in life to be involved in Your Voice and working for older people, and indeed becoming our older people champion, that no doubt Councillor Moran will talk about as well. She made an immense contribution, both locally and nationally, to the cause of older people, and it is pretty coincidental that we've got a motion before us today supporting the creation of an older people champion at a Scotland level, and Neil McFadden was certainly our older people champion, and very much a champion for older people across Scotland. In terms of Jim, we were all deeply saddened to hear of Jim's death. I did probably no longer than most because we were political contemporaries. Jim in the SNP and me in the Labour Party. We both grew up in Port Glasgow, so we were involved in politics at the same time and standing at polling stations. Sometimes having a nice chat, sometimes not having a nice chat, to be perfectly honest. Jim obviously took much longer to get elected to the council than I did. My party was more popular than his was. He was probably more popular than me, but my party was more popular than his party. Jim was a member of the SNP, I have to say, and the support of independence long before it became fashionable. Those were the days when I first got involved in politics. We didn't have any SNP councillors in this council. The first time we had them was in 2007. So, but Jim was campaigning long before 2007 for the SNP, and he was obviously very active in the local community as well during that period. We did have some robust discussions, I have to say, over the years, including a few occasions standing at the bar, being at the bar of C.C. Brown's. Those of you who have a certain age will remember C.C. Brown's. It's worked up. I did have to dodge him in a few occasions. I think I was out for a good night out, and discussing politics. But he was very passionate about politics. And he was my political opponent, I have to say. And we obviously had that division around the Constitution. But I had the greatest respect for Jim McLeod, the way he overcame his disability and his poor health, which was associated with disability. And he made a significant contribution both to politics in this local community, and this council, and to community life. He was a fierce campaigner on a range of topics. He was very passionate around health, road safety and disabilities, and he certainly was an excellent ambassador when it came to disabilities in particular. And one of the sad things, I suppose, looking back to last year, was before the election, we had a nice little celebration to mark the retirement of a number of colleagues. And that was nice, and I'm sure they all appreciated that. But unfortunately, when you stand for election, when you don't get elected, you don't actually have the opportunity to pay respects to colleagues who are not re-elected. And I think, sadly, this is an opportunity to be able to pay that respect to Jim, because I think Jim made an excellent contribution to this council over the 15 years he served on it. And I think his presence is missed. We have a lot of good new councillors as well who are making excellent contributions, but Jim was pretty unique. He brought a unique perspective to the council. He brought his life experiences to the council, and I think that is a loss. There's no doubt about it. It's a loss. And I think Jim, if he was here today, would be first to recognise that he wouldn't have been able to fulfil his role as a councillor without the support of his good lady Sylvia. And before that, in terms of politics and being involved in community activities, Dad, who was always there with him. But during his time as a councillor, Sylvia was there. Sylvia helped him very much to fulfil his duties. So we do owe a debt of gratitude to Jim for the dedicated service that he gave to this council and indeed to the wider community over many years. But we also owe a debt of gratitude, I think, to Sylvia as well for the support that she gave. And those of us who are fortunate to attend this funeral know that she gave him a fantastic send-off, something that he would have been proud of, and she certainly can be immensely proud of. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Councillor Kate. Councillor Moran.
Thank you, Provost. Neil McFarlane, I remember that you said she was the chieftain. I was the Provost that year. And one of the reasons I can always remember it was because the whole time I was the Provost, I think then games get rained off 3 times. It was probably one of the days that we went ahead, but when about 6 feet, I have to say. And in the middle was a kind of platform. So we're wondering how we were going to Neil out to open the games. So these big giant athletes who Tosa came on carried that bodily on it. And I told you she was the most happiest person. So that was Neil, and she joined him. And with Jim, I remember Jim, you know, and don't disrespect my colleague, but he was a member of SNP when it wasn't sexy. I could always remember Jim at the bottom of Princess Street with Jim Grieve, who's another great friend of his, with the rosettes on, knowing because the voting system at the time, as Stephen pointed out, was first past the post, he was the most popular guy in Port Glasgow, but the SNP wasn't. So when they did change it to the STD voting system in 2007, I think Councillor McCabe and Wilson and myself were probably more happy than Jim to see him eventually get his just reward, become the councillor. And he contributed so much to it. And anyone you talk to in Port Glasgow, they will say Jim McLeod, he was one of the he was a son of Port Glasgow. And I think that's the way he put the member promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. Councillor Falkland.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I'll be brief. Stephen said that most of the stuff that I was saying I was doing on with regard to Jim, because I didn't know him a long time as another political contemporary of his. Jim was feisty, without doubt. You know, he was feisty, but his commitment both to the SNP and the SNP's cause was second to none. His commitment to the disability and disability rights was second to none. He would continually remind people of our responsibility with regard to disability, and for that alone, he was a well-respected member of this council. You know, the things I'm always waiting for Stephen, I'm glad he mentioned Sylvia, because you couldn't see Jim without Sylvia. You know, they were an intimacy with each other, and no doubt he couldn't have done what he done without her. So I'm well done to Stephen saying that. And again, we always remember his wee house in the Park Terrace where he was as well. So him and his dad, that was the last chaparral down at Fife Park. So again, it's something I remember him fondly with. With Nell, I'm glad Stephen touched upon Nell's fighting her own battles, and that's how she got into community service in the first place. Those who were in the funeral would hear that she didn't shy away from that. She was willing to say, GP told her, get yourself involved, get yourself involved in the community in order to help yourself now, and she did that. Robert touched upon the funny things, the thing that will live in my memory is you know, for some strange reason, the Telegraph liked to take my photo, right? And it was an opportunity that I had when we modernised the ladies' toilets down at William Street. So there is that classic photo of me in the women's toilets with Nell, and that's probably haunted me ever since. But she was a great woman, and again, a very good community servant in Inverclyde, and it's right that yourself promise that we recognise both and Jim today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Falkland. Anyone else? Councillor Darby.
Thank you. I will keep this brief. I would love now to speak to Sylvia last week. As I said, we would have this today. and she was very pleased of all of the comments she received from all the members. And this chair, she wanted to convey to you how much she appreciated it. I do apologise because I'm just a wee crybaby. But so thank you very much. She went sat on her behalf for all the comments since Jim died and today, Miss Jim. And as I say, I think we've all lost time. I think it's lost percent. I think Inverclyde lost a friend as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Thank you, Member, for such high contributions. To our business, the agenda item number 3 is the 2022-23 annual audit report, meeting request by the Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Parkin, please.
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, everyone. The report hopefully is self-explanatory. It's seeking council agreement to agree the date of the 16th of November for a meeting to consider the 2022 annual accounts and annual report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Parkin? Councillor Parkin, you're like, oh, sorry. Can we agree the recommendation? Thank you. Number 4, statutory review of proposed scheme, so by Mr. Stratton, please.
Thank you, Provost. Yes, councillors, this is a report just advising you of our statutory review of the polling scheme and looking for your approval there to commence that and the timetable that we have at the back there as well. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Stratton? Councillor Brook, please.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Can I just actually bring attention to ID 20, which is in Ward 4, so that's a change. The Church of Scotland selling the hall in Bentinck Street and within the Real Wonders. Well, you may be aware that there's paid for advertising within the grounds of the Real Wonders, the football club. I just wonder if there any guidance that the either the returning officer, as would be, or Mr. Strachan could give us. What would the impact that have of what the parties or individuals have purchased, advertising within basically the culture of that polling place?
Thank you, Mr. Stratton.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I wasn't aware of that, but obviously that's something that we would just take a close look at and make sure there's nothing inappropriate.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Stratton? Can we agree the recommendations? Okay. Agenda item number 5, page 15, the alternative location for Borough flagpole. Mr. Stratton.
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, members may remember back in September last year, it was agreed that we would go out and consult on a proposed and alternative location for the flagpole in Greenock. Having done that, recommending installation on the Gamble Halls, and I'd like to thank the Ward 5 elected members and Gurrock Community Council for their contributions. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Stratton? Can we agree the recommendation? Thank you. Item number 6, endorsed by the Foundation, elected member representation. Mr. Stratton.
Thank you, Provost. Yes, just noting Councillor Maguire's resignation as a trustee, and we're recommending that no elected member replaces Councillor Maguire on the trust, and we've made the Foundation aware of that. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Stratton? Can we agree the recommendation? Thank you. Now we take item number 14 on page 57. This is Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Provision in Inverclyde. A notice of motion by Councillor Wigbay. Councillor Wigbay, please.
Thank you, Paul. Promise bring this motion to the council today, but I believe we are reaching a critical point as the consequences of removing the second pump from Greenock begin to direct airstrike and Inverclyde. In recent events demonstrate that process when the Queen Park school went fire, all the available pumps in Inverclyde were mobilised. The 2 full-time Greenock Port Glasgow, the on-call Greenock Port Glasgow, and also the 2 Europe, 6 pumps in total. Promise. Only 5 turned up, and that immediately gives the officer in charge an issue of how and when to deploy his resources. Now, in addition to that, Provost, there was no fully equipped high reach pump available in Greenock that night, and it had already been removed as part of the cuts. And firefighters tell me that's the first time anyone can remember a fire station, Greenock fire station, not having a fully equipped high reach pump available. Now, ironically, Provost, there was one of the new, and as you tell, loosely high reach pumps at Greenock fire station. However, nobody had been trained to use it, so it wasn't available to the crews. Now, had our regular pump been available, that would have been the Clune Park within 3 or 4 minutes, Provost. And it turned out that the nearest pump, which was dispatched, had to come from Catherine, Glasgow. Now, I'm told it took 35 minutes for that pump to get to Clune Park, 35 minutes to get to the port, Provost. Now, had that fire been in central Greenock, where we have many tenements, 3 or 4 story tenements, high flats, very similar to the fort, then that response time would be maybe 38, 39 minutes. And had the fire been in Europe, we are looking over 40 minutes to get a high reach pump to that incident. Now, that's what we could be facing, Provost, because the SFRS are proposing to reduce the number of high reach pumps across Scotland from the current 26 down to 14, I've heard 16. Haven't had it clarified the other way, but that's going to happen potentially happen from March next year. So if one of them 14/16 pumps is not basically in a Provost, then 20, 30, 40 minute response times could become the norm instead of what we've seen in the past 3, 4, 5 minutes for a Greenock high reach pump to get to more or less anywhere in Inverclyde. That's extremely concerning, Provost. How are we going to keep our people safe if we've got that length of time for a high reach pump to get there? And another very important point on this, Provost, is that if we take away the high reach pump or the second pump at Greenock, then that's going to place a greater demand on the on-call services. The on-call services are an integral part of the fire service to do a great job supporting the full-time colleagues. But that's already under pressure, Provost, and figures have obtained that response times are increasing from all 3 of our local fire stations that have done over the last 3 years. And that also scaling the same well on-call times are increasing, and that again, I believe, Provost, represents an increased risk to people's safety here in Inverclyde. And the reality is, Provost, as good as on-call firefighters do, they have other jobs. They've got families, they've other things going on in their life, right? And in addition to that, they're committing 90 to 120 hours a week to SFRS. Now, they can't be everywhere, quite simply can't be everywhere. And maybe that's what happened at the fire at Clune Park when the on-call appliance from Port Glasgow didn't mobilise. So there were only 5 pumps instead, and what we had said when the incident commander was hoping for 6. But Thomas, you will also recall, as a member of the Police and Fire Scrutiny Committee, that following the cuts, the SFRS told us in this chamber that these plans, what they were proposing, were safe for Inverclyde. But how are we safe, Thomas, when we don't get the required number of pumps turning up? How are we safe when it takes a high reach pump 35 minutes to get to an instant here in Inverclyde, when previously minutes, 3, 4, 5 minutes? And what was also, they also told us at that meeting, Thomas, that we were going to have the same amount of appliances going to be available in Inverclyde. Now that's clearly not the case if we had to go to Castlebar to get a pump to replace the one that had been taken from Greenock. And another very important point, and this is really important, Thomas, the SFRS at that meeting didn't tell the committee that the queuing levels for the on-call service are significantly understaffed in Inverclyde. There's only 20.5 around 40 posts filled. Creates a problem right away. That's 11.5 FTE short there, Thomas, almost 29% of the total headcount. And that's before holidays. So that's clearly going to have an impact on the deployment of the on-call service. And the SFRS are telling us we've got all these pumps in Inverclyde. Well, that's great, but how are they going to man them if they have got these other issues when they're taking them away? And as far as I can see, Thomas, the SFRS can't guarantee that we're on-call pumps will turn down 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days in a year. How can they say that proposals are safe if they can't give us that guarantee? And I'll stress once again, the on-call service and the on-call are an integral part of the service and do a great job to support the fire service and our communities. I think taking the pump away from Greenock makes us less safe for us, and the Clone Park fire really highlights that, because what I spoke about earlier. Why take the pump away when we have response time rising, and Inverclyde and across Scotland as well? When we've got an issue, we've got fuel levels, there's an issue there which we need to be addressed, and we need clarification on what type of high reach pump we're going to have after March 2024, because what we're talking about now, when somebody referred to it as a glorified cherry picker, I don't know, probably haven't seen it, but my information I'm getting, there's only going to be there's no firefighting equipment on it. It doesn't have a usable pump. So if there's a bus fire in West Stewart Street, that pump is not attending, or if there's a serious crash in the A78, that pump won't be attended, because it's for high reach only with a 2-man crew. Promise, the Scottish Government must fund the SFRS correctly. If you don't get the right resources to an incident at the right time, then there will be consequences, and possibly tragic consequences. Now, the FDU are telling us that. Mr. Duncan is telling us that. Common sense, I think, is telling us that as well. So let's not sleepwalk into a tragedy, members. Support the motion, protect our communities, protect our firefighters, and protect our jobs. Thank you.
Now, Councillor McVeigh, your notice of motion, do you wish to read it out for the benefit of people who've been watching online, or shall I read it out for you? The notice of motion is that this council regards the safety of Inverclyde residents as paramount. It therefore supports the Fire Brigade Union's position that the proposed cuts to fire and rescue service provision at Greenock Community Fire Station will result in increased response times and increased risk to life. This council calls on the Scottish Government to reverse the proposed £36 million cuts to the SFRS budget in order that resources can be maintained at the Greenock Community Fire Station, i.e. two full-time fire and rescue appliances, including provision for high-reach capabilities, either separately or combined, and one on-call appliance. That is proposed by Councillor McVeigh and seconded by Councillor Brennan. Councillor Brennan, please.
Thanks very much, Thomas, and thanks very much to Councillor McVeigh for bringing this motion to our council and asking me to second. I think that many of us elected members would have been ready to back up the important messages of solidarity, safety and support for an essential service to which we owe a great deal today and every day. I'm privileged to be able to second it, and thanks to the firefighters for coming along in attendance today. The cuts that are proposed for Inverclyde's fire service are mirrored across Scotland. They're part of a package of Scottish Government cuts that for over a decade has begun to hollow out our fire service, response times worsening, stations in disrepair and hundreds of jobs lost. Of course, none of the blame lies with firefighters who have to keep going in an already dangerous and stressful job. The proposed cuts are simply unacceptable. It's unacceptable for staff putting their own lives at risk to then be forced into ever more impossible situations and catch-22 decisions, then ultimately left with no choice but to put communities at risk as response times rise. In basic terms, it means the public are less safe, i.e. not as safe as they deserve or expect to be. That's never good. I think we can all agree on that. Real terms cuts means real life risk to public protection. The Fire Brigade Union has expressed deep concern that reductions in fire service will risk the safety of both firefighters and the wider public, yet unbelievably Scottish Government's recent programme for government does not even mention the massive challenges firefighters are facing. This is the general picture, but while we stand in support of firefighters across Scotland, Inverclyde is our business first and foremost, and we look always to how our communities will be impacted by such a change. You don't need to dig too deep into the statistics to get a very general picture of our area. We're quite old, we're fairly vulnerable, we don't have lots of money, and we suffer from poor health and struggles with substance use. Not long ago, a motion at this council also looked at challenges with housing in our area. Of course, that's far from the whole setup of Inverclyde, and there's much more to us than that, but we have stubborn problems that impact on every service working for the people who live here. Many of the groups of people who are here in Inverclyde, who live in some of the buildings we have in Inverclyde and manage the health challenges that people in Inverclyde have, they need that bit of extra looking after. And that's why the fire service is so important and really isn't in a place to be cut. Did we somehow miss fire getting fixed? I don't think so. From the numbers and the reporting that we see at every meeting of Inverclyde's Police and Fire Scrutiny Panel, there should be no question marks over the provision, resources, staffing levels and appliances for Greenock Community Fire Station. So what we are doing here today is we're raising the alarm as a council. Greenock's not a remote location and firefighters in our area serve busy communities. From speaking to firefighters at recent meetings like the one in Greenock that us councillors were invited to attend over the summer, it's clear that firefighters are not just talking about a period of belt tightening. There are real concerns about the future sustainability of the entire service. For example, across the west of Scotland, not a single station has been classified as being in good condition. It's a lifeline service and it's simply not possible to run it effectively on the cheap. Firefighters work hard to ensure the safety of people in our community. They deserve to be well equipped, well resourced and well protected to do the job that they do. So Scottish Government needs to come forward with an emergency plan to save our fire service. We need a cast iron commitment from the Scottish Government to reverse the proposed £36 million of cuts to the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service budget in order that resources can be maintained at Greenock Community Fire Station. The people that we rely on to rescue us deserve that helping hand now, not for themselves, but for the work they do on our behalf. And today, that comes in the form of our support for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. The convener of the Police and Fire Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you very much, Convener. I'd like to thank Councillor McVeigh and Councillor Brennan for what they said. As chair of the Police and Fire and Rescue Scrutiny Panel, where I would take exception to, I'm not going to stand here and question what the area commander, David McCarry, told us at our panel. I accept what he said and his justification for things. Equally, we gave the Fire Brigade Union the opportunity to talk to us and we listened to them. I personally have spoken with the representative of the Police Federation because we learned at the last meeting that we're going to lose 17 policemen between Renfrewshire and Inverclyde. That was told to us by Chief Superintendent Waddell. That's a very serious matter as well. So not only are we affected by cuts to the fire brigade, we're affected by cuts to the police force. And the police are pretty thin on the ground as it is. So it really is all very concerning. My party will support this motion, but I think it needs to be made perfectly clear why this is happening. And it's happening because of the Scottish Government, who are introducing the cuts. They made decisions, they made political decisions. They gave the teachers 14% increase to stop the strike. They gave the junior doctors 15% to stop them striking. So they capitulated in front of those two unions. And because of that, they've got to find that money from somewhere else. And that money has been found from the police and the fire brigade. And that is it simply. Now, that is a political decision. They're in power and they can make decisions like that. That's up to them. But they need to realise the consequences for our people here in Inverclyde have been short of policemen and short of firemen. And I think you've described very well between yourself and Councillor Brennan, Councillor McVeigh, the effect of these cuts. So in essence, Provost, my party will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Jason.
Thanks, Provost. Just speaking on behalf of my group, and in contrast to Councillor Wilson, as much as I have the utmost respect for Mr McCarry, I tend to believe the people that are sat behind me right now, and those people are telling us that there's a problem and there will be problems. So we support this motion. One thing that I would ask, and Councillor McVeigh, if you can just clarify, please, during some anecdotal conversations behind the scenes with the FBU and members, there was discussions and comments made that the SFRS chiefs are going to make these cuts no matter what the budget is, so the budget cuts happen from the Scottish Government. These cuts were already planned and are going to happen anyway. So my question would be, is it something that we could possibly include without amending, that if the £36 million cuts get reversed, does the SFRS agree not to make these operational changes in Inverclyde and across Scotland? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paisley. Does any other councillor wish to make a contribution? Councillor Paisley.
Thank you, Provost, and advising to support the motion in the name of Councillor McVeigh and Councillor Brennan. I thank them for bringing this motion before the council. Indeed, I thank Councillor Wilson for agreeing to my request for a special meeting of the Policing Scrutiny Committee back in July, when this issue first came to the fore, and I was contacted by the local FP who I don't necessarily agree with his analysis, I have to say, in terms of public spending, etc. And I think it is the case that we subjected Mr McCarry and his fellow officers to robust scrutiny on the proposals, and they put up, I think, a stout defence. Some of us have taken the opportunity to go and visit the fire station and get a better understanding of the situation, and obviously members have attended public meetings, etc. And absolutely, there are different perspectives here in terms of this particular proposed change. We saw reassurance that this temporary change, which will be subject to consultation, will be fully consulted on that. But to some extent, I mean, this is a bit the tip of the iceberg, to be perfectly honest. Whether this change is manageable or is not manageable, it was quite clear from a meeting in the Scottish Parliament, the chief fire officer getting scrutinised, that they had anticipating further cuts in the years ahead. And if we're concerned about these cuts, and the view at the surface is these are the easy cuts, and we all know about easy cuts in this council, then what do we anticipate is going to happen ahead? So I think it is important that we recognise that there are particular issues here, but the challenges are not going to go away, and there really has to be real thought in the part of government, and indeed the other parties that have the same represent the Scottish Parliament, that if we want high quality public services, they need to be paid for, and we need to find a way to pay for those public services. And I don't necessarily agree with one party's position, I have to say, in the funding of public services at this point in time, but because Councillor Wilson's quite right to recognise that we're seeing the same pressures on the police service. We're seeing it within this council. We know in the weeks and months ahead, we're going to be sitting in this council making very, very difficult choices, which are going to impact on the quality of life in Inverclyde. And we've cut our community ordinance in the past. We think we'll have to look at issues like that again in the future. So we know there are huge challenges facing public services. It is important that public services are paid appropriately for their jobs. That's the reality. We can't run good quality public services without well-paid, well-looked after staff as well. So there's real challenges there. We've seen this as just not a local issue. We've seen the fire air station hotel and the similar issues around Blue Park arising there as well. So it is concerning that, as I say, this is a case of the iceberg. So the message is not just about the 36 million reverse and that, it's about how we actually properly fund our public services and deliver quality, sustainable public services, both in the fire service and across the range of services. So I'm happy to support this motion and for the council to make those representations to the Scottish Government.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Can I take it that we have the unanimous support for the notice of motion by Councillor McCabe?
Promise.
Councillor Collins.
It was just Councillor Bates asked a question of comment about whether or not we can get clarification on that.
Yes, thank you, Provost. I'll just sum up if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll take that point one. Thank you, members, for a contribution. Thank you very much to Councillor Brennan for taking a motion, and also to Councillor Colin Jackson, who's been actively involved in the campaign as well, and for FPU members as well. It's good to talk and get a lot about what's actually happening on the ground. No council also comments, Councillor McCabe's comments. Councillor Paisley, absolutely welcome the comments. Thank you very much, and I welcome the SNP support for this motion. In principle, it's never easy when you're a governing party, but I do welcome support. I wasn't involved, and I'm not aware of anything between the FEU and the management, but I'm happy to add in something that, and to, if Mr. Shraki maybe a wee bit takes that we duplicate reversing that money, everything is reinstated at the Greenup Fire Station. I'm happy to take that on if you could do your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, you can work with Councillor McVeigh to work that appropriate.
Well, should we just take that a couple minutes? I can do that.
Yes.
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 Are you okay? I don't think I believe it's quite nice. That's why I think. I don't want to say. I don't What Smith and James somewhere. I don't care. What's it? The chance comes for this dinner.
To the firefighters here this afternoon, thank you for your attendance. At the moment, our type of legal is with two councillors trying to get the words in the correct order. But after this motion is finished, you are perfectly welcome to stay for the remainder of the proceedings. But you're also free to leave. Thank you very much for being here.
Can we leave as well?
Yes, you may actually do it anytime you want.
Yes, thank you, colleagues.
You're excused.
Nice to be wanted.
You could get out to Scotland, saying that see what and if it's needful, I think the points paid to big groups. Just on the street. I think the one. What is called? There's no money.
Well,
For sure.
oh, that's right. So if you've already budgeted for things in budgets.
Okay, thank you, Promise. So, following discussion with councillors Daisy McVeigh and also councillor Brennan, what we suggested is added in at the end of the third paragraph, is that the council also requests that if the proposed cuts are reversed, that the resources identified above will be secured from this funding.
I will get you that. Thank you, members. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, the annual report on the audit committee. A wee bit from the audit committee. Mr. Strachan, please.
Thank you, Promise. So, yes, members of the audit committee will be aware they considered this back in June, and following updated guidance from SIPRA as to how audit committees should operate, it was introduced to have an annual report that goes to the audit committee and then comes to full council. So that's just this coming full council provinces where you wish to ask the convener of the audit committee.
Councillor Nelson, would you wish to comment?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. This being my first year as chair of the audit committee, I'd first of all like to thank Andy and her team, without which, none of this would be possible. I'd also like to thank David Wilson, especially in recent months, for his support during my recent illness with Lyme's disease. The audit committee met 6 times during 22-23, comprising of meetings on the 7th of June, the 28th of June, the 18th of October 22, the 10th of January, the 21st of February, and the 25th of April 23 to consider reports relevant to the audit cycle and other matters as deemed appropriate. Pre-agenda meetings were also held ahead of the committee meeting involving the convener, vice convener and appropriate officers. All meetings were held using the Council's hybrid meeting platform to allow remote and physical participation. Meetings have been live streamed and made available publicly on the Council's live streaming website. All meetings were attended by the Chief Financial Officer, Head of Legal, Democratic, Digital and Customer Services, and the Chief Internal Auditor. Other senior officers also attended meetings as appropriate for the items on the agenda for which the presence was relevant. Representatives of the Council's external auditors, Audit Scotland, were present at June and October 22 meetings, and the newly appointed external auditors from KPMG were present at the meeting in April 23. The committee received and considered reports from the Chief Internal Auditor in relation to the Internal Audit Annual Report and option on the Council's internal control environment, information on performance and effectiveness of the internal audit team, the internal audit team's progress in delivering the planned work, and summaries of reports issued and updates on the National Fraud Initiative. This enabled the committee to oversee the work of the internal audit and corporate fraud in relation to the provision of assurance on the Council's framework of arrangements for risk management, corporate governance and internal control, and in terms of corporate counter-fraud arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Members, can we approve the annual report on the audit committee? Thank you. Item number 8, the Treasury Management Annual Report, agreement from the Policy and Resources Committee on page 31. Mr. Stafford, please.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, this is sharing it on the Operation Treasury function, which comes to full council, and PRI agreed that it come here for approval. Whether you wish to go to the Chief Financial Officer.
Mr. Puckett, do you have anything to add to this?
Provost, no thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Puckett? No, can we approve the recommendations? Thank you. Item 9 for noting the Inverclyde Social Economic Task Force update. The Chief Executive, please.
Through yourself, Thomas, the report highlights the work that the Social Economic Task Force has been doing. In particular, it attaches a letter which was requested by the Scottish Government colleagues on the 20th, and we sent out on the 21st of August from the chair of the task force, the council leader, and Stuart McMillan. It outlines in the letter a range of initiatives that have been spoken about in the task force over the last 18 months. In particular, these initiatives have been developed through the research from Fraser and Allender, Arnold Johnson, and work that Intelligence Hub has done for us. Happy to take anything.
Have you any questions for the Chief Executive? Councillor Crowley, please.
Thank you, Provost. It's first of all, I would just like to thank the officers for this update. What I do notice is that I have received correspondence from constituents, and they've been complaining about the listed projects which appear to be skewed towards Port Glasgow. There are 8 projects that have been listed, of which 4 are solely for Port Glasgow. That's exactly 50%. However, what I do notice is that, in fact, if officers they could actually confirm if this is in part due to other projects already proposed from Greenock, basically an element of levelling up. And I know that the Glasgow City Region deal benefits Inverclyde, that's the former power station site, Greenock, which is the cruise ship terminal, and also in Greenock we have Inch Green as well. In addition to this, we also have a successful levelling up fund bid that will see massive redevelopment to eastern section, Greenock Town Centre, and realignment of Inverclyde's two main trunk routes. While these will provide wider benefits to Inverclyde, none of these projects are located in Port Glasgow. So what I'm actually saying is that Port Glasgow has benefited because in other projects it has missed out. Secondly, is looking at the membership of the Inverclyde Socio-Economic Task Force. It does not appear to have any representation from the marine-related industries. Given that the intention that the task force is to be subsumed into the alliance, can this be addressed? For example, I was hoping that under the business premises that we could see a relocation of Port Glasgow Fire Station, which would allow for the expansion of Ferguson Marine New Art Works. And this would possibly help with the current issue with the car parking at Coronation Park. Further to that, I now note that there's other options for the locations of the West College Scotland are being considered. Can we look again at the long-term future of Lammett's Dry Dock and Scott's Dry Dock at Greenock Harbours? Although the former is filled in, it can be easily reversed, and I hope that we can all agree that the additional work at the dry dock is more beneficial to Ferguson Marine and Inverclyde than it would be as the current sunken garden. This may not be the correct forum under which to discuss further development to safeguard the future of Ferguson Marine. However, as a council, we have to show support to both the management and workforce in order to safeguard the future of Inverclyde. Thank you.
Great self-comment, so there's quite a lot in that. So, you are correct in relation to Greenock Central was benefited from the levelling up, but obviously in relation to a tune of nearly 21 million. And the levelling up bid has happened during the length of the task force, and we have spoke at the task force about the levelling up bid before we actually put it in. We also used the research from the Intelligence Hub and Arnold Johnson to look at where we would get the most money. And one of the presentations to the task force was to try and see if we could be the first levelling up partnership in Scotland. Now, no one else has got levelling up money and then being a levelling up partnership, but we felt that in order, and that's place-based, so we need to get a place that we can spend up to £20 million. And so that's why Port Glasgow was picked in relation to that place, because it was based on the research that we had done, and also that there had been some money invested through the city region in Inverclyde Ocean Terminal, and now through the UK government and the Levelling Up Fund. In relation to, it's worth just going back to the beginning for the members who weren't here when we created the task force. The task force came from a conversation with the then Cabinet Secretary, Kate Forbes, myself and the council leader. And what we asked was, we knew there was no money in the system, but we wanted to make sure that Inverclyde was in the best place it could possibly be to bid for any money that came up. And that is what we've tried to do through inviting the UK government onto the task force. We have a business subgroup that sits underneath the task force that has a number of partners, including local businesses that come together. We also have another subgroup that brings on partners to do with employee development. The task force was supposed to be short-lived. It's went on for quite a long time. It will morph into something else, and you'll have seen it in the alliance papers that we are looking for it to have an economic partnership, and we're happy to have Marine involved in any kind of economic partnership. It's worth saying that in relation to the investment funds, Inverclyde has lobbied hard to have Marine put down as one of the priorities in relation to the investment zones. Although obviously there's a lot of work to be done in relation to the investment zones, because each investment zone is either 600 hectares or 3 times 200 hectares, and it can't go any smaller than that. And it's very specialist in relation to clusters. In relation to the dry dock, we obviously are in the joint venture in relation to Peel Ports, and we've had investment of the City Region in relation to the joint venture, and we continue to look for additional funding from the Scottish Government and the City Region to try and support that. I don't know if I've answered all of your questions, Councillor Clifford, but hopefully I've picked up most of them. And if there's anything else, I think I'm happy to come back.
Okay, that's lovely, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Inspector. Councillor Kane.
Yeah, thank you. Well, since one of the co-chairs of the task force and my signatory to the letter, I thought I would get my top report as well. I mean, I'm sure John's not meaning like some other people to play one part of Inverclyde off against another, to be perfectly honest. And while I'm a proud son of Port Glasgow, that has not influenced the proposals that have been put on here before. But the reality in terms of Inverclyde is a small place. It's a small travel and work area. I live in Kilmacombe at almost the one extreme end, and obviously we've got Wimsby at the other end. You can cross Inverclyde in 30 minutes, right? So any economic investment in Wimsby or Inverclyde or in Europe or Greenock or in Port Glasgow or indeed even in Kilmacombe benefits the whole of Inverclyde. That's the reality. And when we look at the opportunity set out here, Kilburn Industrial Estate is the best placed industrial estate in Inverclyde for access to the A and the ME and the wider West of Scotland market. So naturally, we would want to look at expanding that. Port Glasgow Industrial Estate has suffered a significant decline over many years. Still a significant number of jobs there, which we need to protect as well. But as part of our council plan, local development plan, to look at the future of Port Glasgow Industrial Estate and ensure that it's got a future. In fact, it can actually support and attract new jobs. So it's a priority for the council. It's not just a priority for me. And in terms of Port Glasgow Town Centre, the Chief Executive has explained what we're looking at is a levelling up partnership, a levelling up fund to bid. We've already got an existing bid for Greenock Town Centre, which hopefully will be fairly transformative. And Port Glasgow Town Centre is our second biggest town centre and need all support, so we're looking at that. The other initiative is Clune Park. Who in this council doesn't believe that Clune Park is the #1 housing issue that we face as a council for Inverclyde, not just for Port Glasgow? And the other initiatives are a range of supports that are available to everybody in Inverclyde. But in terms of Ferguson Marine, you raised the issue of Ferguson Marine. The last task force was in June. We had the Chief Executive of Ferguson Marine along there making a private presentation, shall we say, laying out in fairly stark terms the challenges faced by Ferguson Marine. On the back of that, myself and Stuart McMillan wrote to the First Minister, basically asking that Ferguson Marine should be given a direct award for the next phase of ferry contracts. We get a response, not from the First Minister, but from Neil Gray, the Cabinet Secretary with responsibility for economy, with a non-committal response to that. More recently, I attended a meeting called by the GMB Union, where they invited myself representing the council, MSPs from all political parties, and indeed the Chief Executive of Ferguson Marine, and obviously what representatives of the workforce, to discuss the future and then again the challenges that faced. And out of that, I signed a joint letter to the government calling for the government to invest further sums in Ferguson Marine to make it competitive to bid for future bids as well. So I'm certainly doing my bit for Ferguson Marine. I think the task force is doing its bit for Ferguson Marine as well. And certainly if somebody wanted to bring a motion before this council asking us to do something further for Ferguson Marine, Ferguson Marine is absolutely a crucial and vital employer in this area. It's a source of good quality jobs. It's a source of good apprenticeship opportunities for our young people as well. And we simply cannot afford to lose Ferguson Marine. But there is absolutely a significant threat to the future of Ferguson Marine if they don't get additional work. And I'm certainly, as I said, making those representations to the government and continue to do so. And I would urge all elected members here to make similar representations as well.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Councillor Curley, please.
Yeah, I think it's, thank you for all the comments that have been made by members in this chamber. I think my colleague John was wanting to, what do you call it, to bring to the chamber comments that he's been received. And I think it's important we've had this discussion and raise why the task force decided what it did, the wider economic benefits to Inverclyde, and the fact that it took account of the ongoing projects along the occurred. And this is part of the wider discussion about investment in Inverclyde. And I welcome the comments about what you call personally. It's important the money that has been invested in Ferguson Marine. It's important that shows fruits in the future. This is the last commercial shipbuilder in the Clyde, and it's important that investment sees fruit, and that we do see after the two ships are done, the throughput of additional ships in there. And it's important when you look at Inverclyde and the opportunities there and other opportunities within the Clyde that we get this joined up approach and start bringing the industry back to the Lower Clyde and industry back to this town, because it's where we can actually bring a lot more jobs into it, and jobs that are not just project based, but jobs that are what we call company based and industry based that have got a long-term sustainability. And with those long-term sustainability jobs, you get long-term sustainability of homes, people, schools, hospitals. It's jobs, and that's what we're all into today. So I welcome the comments, and I thank you, John, for starting off this debate on this important part of the redevelopment of Inverclyde. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curran. Can we therefore agree the recommendations in this report? Thank you. Agenda item number 10, it gives me great pleasure to put forward this request. A request that has came around the houses, as it were. I think it came through Councillor McCormick initially, regards acknowledging the achievements of John McMaster. John McMaster is the classic case of a local boy made good. He played predominantly with the Aberdeen Football Club under the auspices of Alec Ferguson at the time, winning the Cup Winners' Cup and the European Super Cup 40 years ago this year. Those of us of a certain age will remember fondly that night in Gothenburg with John Hewitt scoring that remarkable goal. John finished his career at Caplo, both as a player and assisting with the management. When this request was put forward and the Greenock Telegraph issued it on their social media channel, it certainly got the approbation of the people of Inverclyde. The request is such that Inverclyde Council acknowledges the achievements of John McMaster in his long and illustrious football career, this being the 40th anniversary of Aberdeen beating Real Madrid in the European Cup Winners' Cup final. That it also acknowledges his service to Greenock Morton Football Club and commends him in the honours that he has brought and in his continual promotion of Inverclyde. Can we, Councillor Kate, please?
Yeah, I was just wanting to associate myself with your request, Robert. I think it's a really worthwhile request. I think John McMaster is certainly a son of Greenock that Greenock should be proud of, and indeed Inverclyde should be proud of, and certainly part of that historic European Cup winning team, a European Cup Winners' Cup winning team. I think it is important that we acknowledge that. I've never probably said this publicly, but I was at college in Aberdeen for 3 months during the run to Gothenburg, and I did actually attend the game against Bayern Munich at the Tawdry. At that time, Celtic and Aberdeen were better rivals, I have to say. But I was there, absolutely, in the beach end at Aberdeen that night, cheering Aberdeen on. Probably the first time, last time on, cheering Aberdeen on, but it certainly was a it certainly was a momentous achievement, and I think it's right to recognise John's contribution to that.
Thanks, Councillor McCormick.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I knew a second was coming up today, so I fished out my Morton shirt just for effect. So, no, I'd like to associate myself with the Provost comments. John's a local boy from Gibbs Hill, who went on to win the European Cup Winners' Cup 1983 with Aberdeen, beating Real Madrid, no less, in the final. John was inducted into the SFA Hall of Fame last year, and I feel it's entirely appropriate that his achievements are recognised here in his hometown. So thanks very much for bringing it forward, Provost.
So thank you, Councillor McCormick. John McMaster will be acknowledged further by this council if we agree this request.
Sorry, Provost. Provost.
Maybe bring another motor support.
Okay, I've not got one tie on just now, but yes, I was previously a season ticket holder at Capello. But first of all, Provost, I welcome this request to acknowledgement the achievements of John McMaster. As a Morton supporter, I remember well his contribution to the club as a player and then as an assistant manager. If members permit me to digress, when I think of former Morton Football Club players that made a major impact with Aberdeen Football Club, as well as John, I can also recollect Joe Harper, Joe being dubbed the King of the Beach End. Thank you, Stephen, for mentioning that you'd actually been up at the beach end, but I think Joe played there much earlier. And there was Mark McGee. Now, Mark also started his career at Morton and played in the same 1983 UEFA European Cup Winners' Cup team as John. And in more recent time, we also had Derek McInnes as well, not as a player, but as a manager. Player for Morton, then manager with Aberdeen. Now, there's a great history between Morton and Aberdeen, and although in the through the early 80s, I'm sure that there is one certain Aberdeen manager who would forget some of his business at Capello. It's not Derek McInnes. I'll leave you to guess who that is. Anyway, the contribution that John made to that historic Aberdeen victory against the mighty Real Madrid at the Ullevi Stadium in Gothenburg on the 11th of May 1983, with basically helping Aberdeen to write their name into the history books with that 2-1 victory after extra time. But you should also acknowledge John's great contribution to Morton, Scottish football and Inverclyde in subsequent years. I am happy to support your request to acknowledgement the achievements of John McMaster, who was born and bred in Gibbs Hill, and I ask members to support this request. Thank you.
Can we agree with this? Thank you. Agenda item number 11, the Dementia Friendly Enabled Communities Project. It's a request for myself on behalf of Your Voice. We made representation to the council. I think I shall read the wording of the request, which is self-explanatory. Funded by Inverclyde Health and Social Care Partnership and delivered by Your Voice, the Dementia Friendly and Enabled Communities Project began in November 2021. Through the delivery of this initiative, Your Voice are working to empower the development of Inverclyde as a community where people impacted by dementia are supported, respected, and empowered to remain active. Your Voice has over 30 local assets already signed up to the initiative, and having support from the council will help to emphasise the important message that Inverclyde hears, demonstrating the community-wide commitment to work towards a dementia-friendly Inverclyde. People impacted by dementia have shared with Your Voice the importance of being surrounded by a community that is aware and understanding, and the positive impact that this can have on their daily lives. Ultimately, a community that is aware is a community that is empowered to challenge stigma by turning understanding into action and social change. This council is asked to declare its support for this project and to encourage more citizens, community groups, and organisations across Inverclyde to become involved and support this important initiative. Would any member like to comment? Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Provost. A very quick comment. Myself and Councillor Beddoes attended the AGM of Your Voice this morning, where each of the projects that they support were well presented in terms of video presentations to the disabled. And I have to say, the range of organisations that are already engaging with this particular project is absolutely astounding. It's cutting across every aspect of life, from working in the community to the housing association, so where people live, what they do with their leisure time. And I think we as a kind of a body of umbrella concern that also touches on all of those and can influence all those, it's absolutely right and proper that we support, but actually the information very, very short video that was presented today was utterly inspirational in terms of the aspirations of this particular group. So absolutely delighted to associate ourselves with this. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, similarly, my group's more than happy to support this. Yes, obviously, I think we've all been approached individually about supporting the initiative, and I'm sure a lot of us have already signed up to it, so I think it's only right that the councils are corporate entity endorsed with this particular initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Could I agree with the questions? Thank you. Item number 12 on the agenda, which is on the supplementary sheet, care experience citizens. I notice a motion by Councillor Property. Councillor Property.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. We're discussing a lot of topics today, but this topic is what's to the heart of what we do in our time as public servants. Firstly, I obviously want to apologise to the audience in this paper. Usually when councillors get a paper late, it's because of some shenanigans or some political sort of circuitous where they were trying to slip in through under people's noses. In this case here, it wasn't like that. The reason for the delay in getting this to you is the most important people in this motion are the young people that it involves. And so I did speak to our proud to care kids. I did speak to our kids and I said, I'm bringing this motion forward. I didn't want it to be something that councillors do to young people. I wanted to make sure that they had seen it, they agreed to it, and they were happy for me to bring it forward. And until I got that agreement, I wasn't going to bring it forward here today. So I'm glad to say that we did say, yeah, Jim, we think it's a good motion and we're going to bring it forward. So I thank you very much for doing that. I suppose the second point that I would like to make in this as well, and around this table, there's far more qualified people to bring this type of motion to the council. I've been very lucky in my life and in my family life too, but I recognise in our care experience youngsters, there's people who have not got the same advantages and have not been through the same experiences as perhaps my children have been. One of the things that I said to the young people when I met them was, if you're a young person in Inverclyde, if you're a parent in Inverclyde, you don't stop being a parent when your child turns 16, when they turn 25, when they turn 35. Those of us with older children know that you're there to help them throughout their lives. And I think as corporate parents in Inverclyde, we've really got to take that responsibility and recognise what our young people go through in Inverclyde. The stats that we've done through the promise, and again, the commitment to the promise is there. And the very first thing is that commitment to the promise, that idea that we want our children to be loved, to be safe, to be respected is key as well. But the stats involving care experience kids are there to be seen. There's a whole raft of them, but I took down quite a few of them. I'm not going to go into all of them, but the ones that stand out is care experienced child is twice as likely to experience homelessness and is 3 times as likely not to have a full-time job by the age of 26. Now, those are stark, and for us as corporate parents, what we would do for our own kids is help them out as much as we can. Now, this motion itself doesn't do this. What this motion does is put forward an idea of, again, care experienced children, kids should be authentic characteristics. You know, I listen to them and I know one of the things that they're scared of most is that stigma of care experience. You know, we've been through it before, what we were terms and terms do, and sometimes terms are important. You know, I noticed that Councillor Wilson earlier on, you know, again, talking about old-fashioned terms that we move on from. You know, what we actually do is we try to be a modern, inclusive council. And I think what this motion does, by calling for care experienced children, care experienced young people, not children, to be a protected characteristic can only be good. It goes alongside, and I'm sure eventually it will be national policy. Other councils have done it as well. We are not the first in doing this, but we are one of the first. So I would ask, when you look at the motion, to support it. What the motion doesn't do, in no way does it undermine our staff and the work they are already doing. We have got fantastic staff that work with our young people. All the motion does is support that and actually say to them, look, we recognise that and we'll put it down as a protected characteristic. I would ask Councillor Maguire to second the motion, and I hope that if members feel like it, that they actually join in and support that motion and stick to it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clockerty. Councillor Maguire, please.
Provost. I'm seconding Councillor Clockerty's motion today, and I won't talk for very long, but I do want to touch on a few things. At Inverclyde Council, all of us here take our role as corporate parents very seriously. We are passionate about ensuring that those who experience care at any point are support and a voice, and we do this through our I Promise team. Everyone deserves to have dignity and respect and to be involved in the decisions that affect them. This motion aims to put care experienced people at the centre of any policies or strategies that affect them. To experience care in whatever way can experience stigma, disadvantage, or as Councillor Clockerty touched on a moment ago, they can be discriminated against or suffer disadvantages throughout their lives, not just whilst they're in care. Being in care impacts the whole person and affect people's lives long as people we stand with and the discrimination that they face.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. You were just making up there towards the end of it. We've got the gist of what you were saying. Does any other member want to take part in the Councillor Brooks, please?
Thank you very much, Provost. So first I'd like to associate myself with the motion and what's been said and give full support. And just a bit of clarity, Jim, from it. So to formally call upon local RSLs, etc. in number 6 there, what does that actually mean? Because I'd love to see some action from this to ensure that it comes in Inverclyde wide. So I'm going to send a letter to RSLs, etc. I don't know if Mr. Strachey would like to clarify what he would see by formally call upon. How do you actually make that happen? There's full support of the motion. I'd like to make it as wide as possible.
Sure. Yes, I think we envisaged an officer would issue a letter to relevant organisations.
Thank you.
Any other members make a contribution? Councillor Pitt, please.
Thanks, Provost. Just to say thank you to Councillor Clockerty for bringing that. You know, as mentioned, as corporate parents, we're absolutely delighted with anything that supports our care experienced community. I was absolutely delighted when you mentioned that you had that consultation with the young people, because that's actually part of our promise. The promise is nothing about us without us. So I've just got a small request that we actually make note of that in the motion, because I think it's really important for us as a council to say that we have not actually put through this motions ourselves, but we've actually, Councillor Clockerty gladly has done that consultation. So if we could make reference to that, I think it's quite important that we're proving that we're following on our promises. Thanks.
Yeah. If we could have that related, that would be excellent.
Sorry, can I just check all that? What was to be added in as the query?
Yeah, so it's nothing about us. Nothing about us without us is the promise. So it's just to note that Councillor Clockerty has had that consultation with our Proud to Care group, and he's done that really well. So I think that should be recognised in the motion that work has been done.
Chief Executive.
Through yourself, Provost, I wonder if it's okay, Councillor Quinn, if we minute that in the minute and that I refer to that as the officer who will write to the RSLs and the health board. If you're content with that, that means we don't have to change the motion, but I will refer to it. Is that okay?
No. Okay. Councillor Armstrong, then Councillor Reynolds, please.
Thank you, Provost. I hope you can hear me all right and that my voice isn't too weird. I tested positive for COVID this morning. I support the motion, but I want to make a couple of points about disclosure of personal history has to be at the, at the wishes and the timing of the individual, and that automatic flagging can cause real harm. With the protection of us having different married names, and my daughter no longer living in Scotland, I want to share that she was in fact red flagged during her first pregnancy because of her birth name and her family history. And no amount of trying to explain how differently she had been brought up could in fact bring about change. And it caused real harm, real anxiety. I mean, she absolutely believed that the first mistake she made with her first baby, she would lose the care of her baby. So I want to make that point. One of my daughters will be 39 next week. My other daughter is 37. They came to me when they were 9 and 11 in permanent foster care. My daughter very rarely tells anyone out with the family that I am not, in fact, her mother. And I 100% support her right to make those decisions. So with the proviso that automatic flagging can be very harmful, and that the disclosure is a personal matter and personal choice according to the wishes and timing of the individual, I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, for such wise words. Councillor Reynolds, please.
Yeah, just a comment. Councillor Robertson, I was at the Your Voice. Stand up. Stand up. I was at the Your Voice AGM this morning, and there was a brilliant video by 4 care experienced children. It was just great. That's what they mentioned, the words being used, and it wasn't just care experienced, but they had a whole list of words that they would prefer to be changed. And they just did it so well, and it just fits in with Councillor Quinn's comments as well. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan, please.
Thanks very much, Provost, and thanks very much to Councillor Jim Fogarty. Councillor Jim. Yeah, and Councillor Maguire also, because I think that's a shame that Councillor Maguire's technology wasn't working, because I think in discussions that I know Jim and Councillor Natasha have had about this, I think one of the points that Councillor Maguire was making was that care experienced young people become care experienced adults, and that was why she felt, I don't want to put words into her mouth, but she felt it was so important that we talked here about care experienced citizens and how those responsibilities as corporate peers don't just stop when somebody reaches a certain age. We had the recovery walk, the Scottish Recovery Walk on Saturday past. Really great to have it in the Battery Park, and some of us councillors were really proud to walk alongside the Proud to Care group, the local Proud to Care group. And often as politicians we get accused of talking the talk but not walking the walk, and I think that's what this motion is really about. It's about walking alongside people. And I just wanted to also mention that a recent social work and social care scrutiny panel, we had a very brief report about the new initiative of the promise keepers and a lot of the work that was going on around that, and I think this motion is exactly the sort of spirit that promise keepers would be about, and making sure that those responsibilities are really keenly felt by all of us. Thanks very much, Councillor Fogarty.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan.
You remember?
Before I go to Councillor Fogarty, is there any other member who to make a point? The Councillor Fogarty.
Yeah, thanks. So my problem is I still can't get used to calling people councillor, so I call line, I call something but call Pam, so I always apologise for that. And I'll go and tell you what I call Francesca. Can I thank you very much for the kind words, and I take it from the board, but say I take what Pam says on board very, very much so. We do know One of the key things that I know people don't want is they don't want stigma. We do recognise that it's one of the key things, but even when I was talking to them, they even mentioned in the note for this, even the locations they've got, they prefer the locations to be called a name rather than a unit, a children's unit or someone. I think that I think is important, and it brings in very much what Sandra was saying as well. I think we've got to be very careful with language, and for us in Inverclyde, as corporate parents that we've all saying, I'm glad you supported this motion. I might have not done it credit it deserved in articulating it properly, but I think the words around it and everything else, so thanks very much for being to it.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Doherty. Can we unanimously agree this was the motion? Thank you. Item number 30 on the agenda, page 55. It's Commissioner for Older People. It's a written motion by Councillor Brennan. Councillor Brennan, please.
Thanks very much, Thomas, and fellow elected members for taking the time to hear this. So I was actually going to start this motion by paying my own tribute to Nell McFadden, and we've heard great stories shared about Nell already today. I didn't actually have what I call lived experience of Nell, but I had the privilege of seeing her speak at loads of different events, and she was a one-off woman who fought tirelessly for the rights of older people. And as you already mentioned, Provost, a founder member of Inverclyde's Elderly Forum. Back in 2020, when the Telegraph reported on Nell's retiral, she was quoted as saying, "People listen to older people now, they didn't back then." Well, I think we can all take inspiration from Nell. In fact, she said that that was what she wanted, to inspire people to go out and do things for their community and make the best of what they have. On our council now, we have Councillor Wilson as our older person's champion, and I know that he's very much in support of the spirit of this motion. And I think when you get Councillor Wilson championing human rights, then there must be something special going on. So seriously, that'll come. So seriously, Councillor Wilson's support is much appreciated, along with that of the Labour group, and particularly Councillor Moran, who's going to second this motion, and also hopefully more of the councillors as we continue this discussion. So I think essentially this motion is about scaling up the type of work that somebody like Nell McFadden did so much of here in Inverclyde, speaking up for and speaking out for older adults. You've had a chance already to read through this quite lengthy motion, and it's about getting behind the concept of an older person's commissioner for Scotland, a role which would champion the rights of older people in Scotland, and it would ensure the needs and voices of older people are considered in policy and practice, and essentially improve the lives of older people in our country. So it's not about OAPs, but it is about P's, people, because everything we do is about people, in this case older people. It's about protecting older people's human rights and potential, about older people's ability to have an ongoing and valued involvement in society and their potential to make even more of a contribution, as they rightly should be able to. Some critics might say there's an inherent ageism in our society, along with a refusal to accept the processes of ageing. And some say these attitudes have contributed to the real and present crisis in our social care system. It's an ongoing emergency that means that older people who really deserve the best don't always get it. On top of that, we know that older people can be adversely affected by loneliness, social isolation, struggling with poor housing, living in poverty. And we heard earlier on from the Provost and from other councillors, Councillor Robertson and Councillor Reynolds, about the Great Dementia Friendly and Enable Communities project that's a really important initiative. But establishing a commissioner for older people is a really good, sound idea for making sure there's a dedicated champion for the rights of older people and a direct link with government. Wales and Northern Ireland already have commissioners in this role, and it's one of these roles where you think, actually, why hasn't that already been done? So it's important that we as a council respond to the consultation and look at the preparatory work being done to pave the way for a commissioner. Finally, many of you will already know the poem Warning by Jenny Joseph, and it's a much loved poem that comes from a middle-aged woman at the time looking ahead to older age, and it goes, if you'll indulge me, when I am an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me, and I shall spend my pension on summer gloves and satin sandals and say, we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only eat bread and pickle for a week and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. It goes on, but I'll finish there. So some of us in the room are well on our way to the purple wearing or the terrible shirt wearing stage, I would say. But the bad news is that I don't think as Inverclyde councillors we're allowed to do the running our stick along the public railings or picking flowers from other people's gardens, even if we wanted to. And that's you I'm looking at, Councillor Jim. But the good news, however, is that there is something positive we can do today. We can support this motion. So thanks very much, and I'll Councillor Moran to Bethan with your thanks.
Thank boss. We didn't get the wrong way round because they said I shall put which was I'm an older person. But I can assure you she'll be operated once I was one. Promised. I second this motion. Scotland's population is aging. There are more people aged between 75 is going to increase to in 2039 by 800,000. People will be over 75 then. This has had implications on how we provide healthcare, housing, support services. We must ensure the right to support and available to older people so they can live safely and independently in their own home. Remember that older people contribute much to our communities. Many unpaid carers are also older, and many volunteers who provide other forms of support are older people. Promise, in 2023, the Scottish Government carried out research in the role of Deputy Commissioners, and as Francesca says, they interviewed the older people Commissioner for Wales, the older people Commissioner for Northern Ireland, but Promise, there wasn't one in Scotland. Why? Why would you ask Wales and Northern Ireland you don't have one yourself? It doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. In Scotland, there's a range of commissioners, but not one for older people. We need to change this and give older people our own commissioner. Promise, I move this, I second this motion for Councillor Brennan for older people commissioner.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. Go to the father of the chamber, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Brennan. That really is quite an unadulterated attempt to get my job. But I would like to thank Councillor Brennan and Councillor Moran for giving me a heads up about the motion, informing about it beforehand. That was excellent, thank you. I'm extremely supportive of it. I go to various meetings to do with Age Scotland. I'm so well entrenched, I now get a calendar. I am going on the 9th of October to the Scottish Older People's Annual Assembly. I've been to several of them so far. At these meetings, 2 were in Holyrood. There is no specific minister who seems to look after older people. There really isn't. Jenny Minter turned up. Christine Graham turned up. She was excellent. She was quite superb. She was most amusing, most understanding, and really was very, very good to meet. And there was quite a few older person champions there. Now, I'll just read you the invite to the meeting at Strathclyde University, 9th of October. The programme will include a variety of speakers, a cross-party panel of MSPs, workshops and more. A full programme will be made shortly. No mention of a commissioner, no mention of a minister. With other roles we have outside of here, there's always a minister in charge. So I really do support your motion. One thing I wouldn't mind is if the Health and Social Care Committee are putting forward a request, I'm quite happy to have my name added to it as the older person's champion. I am supportive of it. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the heads up. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Before I go back to Councillor Brennan, is there any other member wants to make a contribution? Councillor Brennan, do you have a thought about that?
Thanks very much, Provost. Nothing too much more to add. Just to add, thanks to Councillor Wilson for bringing up Age Scotland, because this proposal is actually supported by Age Scotland, and I think there's nothing to stop any members taking up the opportunity to complete the consultation themselves as well, and I think the more responses we can get, the better. I've already completed the consultation, but it would be great to have the council completing it as a whole, and I don't think that there would be any problem in adding Councillor Wilson's name as well to different submissions that we make as the council older person's champion. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Members, can you agree that notice of motion be 56? Thank you. Item 15 of the agenda is disposable dates. A notice of motion by Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Reynolds, please.
Thanks, Provost. This motion is really about groups in general, to do with children and adolescents, rather than just disposable ones. First of all, I'm grateful for the support of the council 2 councils ago to support me in bringing this public health motion regarding vaping products. When I started the research for this, and this has been going round in my head for 2 months, I'm just a bit going nuts with it. When I started it, I had no idea at that time, maybe I should have been given my health background, that I would be so shocked by the evidence regarding the adverse health impacts on our children and adolescents. To begin with, I discussed research abstracts from about 113 pieces of evidence. They included individual studies, systemic reviews and position statements with the public health pharmacist for NHS, GGC and Lanarkshire. Their team put a paper together to the Scottish Government to inform and shape policy. Another team is working on a paper on the effects in adults. So on reading this and discussing them, these pieces of research show a huge range of harms, both physical and psychological, and they include adverse effects of nicotine on the development of the adolescent brain, change in behaviour, sleep patterns disturbed, decreased attention, mood behaviour, mental health problems, which all impact on their education. Nicotine exposure leads to cardiovascular and neural effects at this critical development period, including cognitive function and short-term memory. There are adverse effects in the respiratory system, including lung damage, pneumonia, effect of the carcinogens that are in some of these products, leading to lung cancer. And in some 13-year-olds, it was shown that effects ranged from recoverable lung function to death. The risks are increased in the group of never smoking youths. Adolescents are particularly vulnerable to the harmful effects of nicotine and additives. Some flavours which mask the taste of nicotine and make vapes more attractive to this group, to children and to the never smoking youth, possibly have harmful cardiotoxic effects as well. Those 4 points I've made are a drop in the ocean. Like I say, I'm truly shocked by the evidence that's coming out the past 5 years from different countries as well as our own. As you may have heard, this topic has moved on rapidly over the last couple of months, with repeated news items this week on TV and radio stations. It's been pretty well constant this week about vaping. The fact that e-cigarettes or vapes can deliver high levels of nicotine over short periods of time are increasing in popularity, leading to a rise in nicotine addiction in the typically non-smoking adolescent population. Young people most at risk from effects of vaping due to huge increase in usage within the age group, with increased risks of underdevelopment in the most important time of life regarding cognitive and physical growth, including adverse effects on the cardiovascular, respiratory, nervous and immune systems of the body. The high uptake of vapes by children and young people, including underage children, is partly fuelled by deceitful marketing and internet exposure, which is also unregulated. The vaping industry seems to be behaving as the tobacco industry did for decades and is creating a whole new generation of young nicotine addicts where they're just targeting them with the types of products and making them look attractive. And it reminds me of what we saw in the tobacco industry, like I say, decades ago. Another concern is a report of a £350,000 donation to the Conservative Party from a company linked to colourful vapes. The financial lobbying from this industry has started. I strongly feel that vaping products should be under the same regulations as other nicotine products, out of sight, no advertising, and stronger regulation on availability and product strength. The NHS Scotland smoking cessation programme has been highly successful and is back on track after a blip during the pandemic. Although proposed as aids to smoking cessation, there is no evidence that vaping adds anything to the standard smoking cessation strategies that already exist in our programme. Added to this is the risk of explosion or burn injuries from battery failure, a risk of child ingestion and poisoning of liquid nicotine in the vapes, second-hand e-cigarette vapour which contain carcinogens. So while waiting on the results of Scottish Government consultation on a ban on disposable vapes and asking for consideration on regulation, we as a council should consider actions to protect our young people who are accessing vaping products from non-traditional outlets, such as mobile phone repair shops, hairdressers and fish and chip shops. And as an example, Aberdeen Council is proposing to ban cash sales of vaping products following a rise in the number of children buying them, therefore reducing access and proxy sales. And I'm sure that I have all personally, there's been experience that I've heard of children asking adults to go in and buy them for them. Aberdeen's test purchasing scheme showed 1 in 5 retailers sold to under 18s. They now propose a new charter for a voluntary scheme to accept only card payments for tobacco and vaping products. South Lancashire Council revealed that vaping products were sold to under 18s in 21 out of 70 tightly controlled visits, and those 21 were served with a fixed penalty fine. So I could go on forever on this, I really could. I think probably I've given you a flavour of how worried I am about this and how worried we should be for our children and young people in particular. And I would ask Council to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. The motion is seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Armstrong, please.
I don't have a lot to add to what Councillor Reynolds has said, but I want to make the points. I was alerted to this issue by a constituent, a parent who also happens to be a teacher, although not in Inverclyde. And since then, I've discussed it with different groups of parents in school council meetings. Most parents acknowledge that they don't actually know if their child or children, if their child is vaping. It's not like when I was a kid, you know, your parents could smell if you'd had a cigarette. You don't know. They come in and there might be a smell of bubblegum. Easy, they had some bubblegum. It's a public health crisis. I mean, it's estimated that the use of these disposable vapes has increased 4,000% in the last year. Now, until there is either, I beg your pardon, Scottish Government legislation or UK Government legislation to protect the health of children and young people, local authorities are actually the only bodies who have any powers and locus to try to prevent further harm. And it's critical. There should be no delay, because tomorrow, almost certainly, another child or young person in Inverclyde will try a vape for the first time, and that may lead to them becoming, a lifelong nicotine addict. That's what we're talking about. Now, I'm describing it as a public health crisis, but it's only local authorities who have any powers currently to do something about it. Now, I would really urge that we use the resources we have for age-related testing. If we need to divert them from other aspects of age-related testing to vaping, looking at the non-traditional outlets, the convenient card and convenience stores, the places that are selling these geek bars, elf bars. So I really urge you to support the motion. As Councillor Reynolds has said, Councillor Reynolds really has compiled massive amount of research in relation to this problem, but it is a crisis. It's happening now, and we need to use the powers that we have to try to prevent further harm. Thank you. I ask you to support the motion. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Brooks and Councillor Moran.
Thanks very much, Thomas. In principle, we're happy to support the motion that's before us today, and we can also see the dangers that's been highlighted by the contributions by Councillor Reynolds and Armstrong, so there's no challenge there. But I'm sure Councillor Robertson talked about the evidence, that we need the evidence to make things happen. So the third paragraph talks about obviously making new legislation, and we need to ensure we have robust evidence so that we can actually take that legislation through the Scottish Parliament to ensure that we know what we're to ensure the Scottish Parliament has appropriate legislation to stand up. I would ask, and it's certainly brought up by Councillor Armstrong, about the power that we do have, and it's interesting for me to think about. It's a good motion, but what will it do tomorrow? What will our officers do tomorrow? What will our next committees do tomorrow? So I don't know if Mr. Strachan can help. Retail charter, we've got a voluntary charter to stop cash sales. Where does that fit within our council structure? Does our LSOs going to be, checking up on that? It's just to get some understanding. I agree with the principles that's been brought forward. I'd like to just have some understanding. How do we do this? How do we actually implement this? Should we approve it? And our group is happy to support the principle. Thank you.
Chief Executive.
And through yourself, Thomas. So the motion actually says that we will bring back a report outlining what the actions that can be taken. And I will need to think quite carefully about what committees I could actually go to, because it actually crosses a number of committees. But if you ask me what officers will do tomorrow, what officers will do is pull together a report for members to consider in relation to it.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Moran.
Thank you, Provost. Thanks, Provost. Provost, this is not just a serious health issue, which we all know that. And if anyone gets into a shop, if you want to buy cigarettes, they're blacked out, you don't know where they are. That's what. But as soon as you get in, this taxi, this bright lights, which is vapes, and I was standing completely innocent, and this young woman says, "Give me 2 pineapple and a melon," and I'm backing up my heat here. And of course, they grew these packets for these vapes, and that's the way they look on it, as a fruit or something, not realising the damage that they're doing to themselves. But also, it's the environmental issue as well. In London alone, there's 6 million of these things get flung away every week. Where do they go? They've all got a battery in them, which is causing fires, and they've got plastic, which we can't dispose of. So at the end of the day, I fully take on board what Councillor Reynolds said there, but I will remember too that there is an environmental price to be paid here as well as the health issue.
Councillor Potter, then Councillor Power.
Thanks, Provost. Can I firstly congratulate Sandra and Pam for bringing this forward and the amount of work they must have done in that, and so and research done. So thank you for that. And it is topical. Elizabeth, Graham, and Councillor Brennan. The topic news yesterday when quite honestly in centres, there's people queuing up, getting people to buy vapes for them, you know, so it is now what used to happen with alcohol when people younger people hang out and get people into allegedly get people going and buy them drink. But we've also seen as well on the advertising thing, we've seen vape companies actually doing free samples with no age checks. An incredible situation where anything can have said and their note or their name and address, or they go to these disco places and give out free vapes without any checks whatsoever. So I think this motion is timely, and I congratulate both of these for bringing it forward, and I sense.
Thank you, Councillor Doherty. Councillor Cummins.
Thank you, Provost. Obviously, I'll be supporting this motion, but I think just touching upon a point that was made earlier on. Obviously, as a council, we've already made a decision. Robert has raised about environmental issues. We've already raised that as a motion to bring that forward. So this is to do with the health issue. So I think both aspects need to be tackled and tackled quickly. And I think this is an issue it's been developing under our nose. It's really realising anecdotally it's rife in our schools. You could even say the majority of kids are now vaping or now tried vaping, and that is shocking statistic when you think when I was at school, we were kids. It was a minority of kids who were smoking, and the whole thing was to get people to stop smoking and remove that scourge from our society. And now it's come back again. You know, you have to admire enterprise for somebody. When you've stopped one harmful thing and other things, they always think of something else to come along and sell something else to us. So unfortunately, we've got this situation. And it's not, I say it a bit coming out of the nose. I was in Glasgow the other week there. I was in Greg's of all places. I noticed a bunch of kids outside chatting away, and then I was eating my sandwich, and then the kid disappeared off. A minute or so later, 2 minutes later, the kid looked about 12. Maybe looked about 8, but maybe it was 12. Youngest in the group comes back with a disposable vape and just opens it up and just starts using it. So that is something he's just purchased from the shop, broad daylight. He should not be able to get that vape in our area. Just was able to go in, get it. As I say, he was the youngest looking person in that group, and he was able to get it. That's what's important. We look up, as the motion says, but what we can do now. And there has to be a report, but hopefully it'll be an expedited report to get that report quickly back to the relevant committee or committees, so that we can actually get something done on this quickly, because it is happening now, and we've got to affect measures to limit this damage to our children as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cummins. Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you. Hopefully you'll all hear me this time. Yeah, I support this motion coming forward. Thank you for the time that you have spent pulling this together. I welcome this because, as Councillor Curley just said there, you do see children and young people using these vapes in public. You see them on the way home from school using them, and it totally baffles my mind how they get access to these. And I welcome the fact that we're asking Scottish ministers to consider legislation on this. We don't fully know the health impacts this is going to have. As Councillor Moran touched on, we don't know just how many of these are actually getting trucked away. We can estimate, but we don't fully know. So right now I feel like we do need to limit the damage that is being done by these both to our children and young people. And I think that by us writing this letter to the Scottish ministers, this will be hopefully the first step of a journey that we're on to try and stop these from landing in the hands of our children and young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGuire. Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, it was just to ask if the council has the ability to do test purchases as far as these are concerned, and do we carry that out at the moment?
Yes, we can do. I think there's some practical difficulties in terms of, if you take a lot of these vaping shops, as I understand it, they're smaller and they don't lend themselves so much practically to test purchasing, but we can do, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Provost. Just a very quick point on the back of that exchange, really. There are vape shops, but there are other shops which sell vapes, and arguably they are more problematic. So I think if we are putting in place a pivotal resource that's traditionally used for other usually unpaid restricted products, to include vapes, then we do want to kind of pass the net away in terms of the commercial premises that are covered by that, and I just wouldn't want that to be lost in translation. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Reynolds, will you give a final word?
Thank you, Tim. Years ago, at the well of the pandemic, when I was organising community pharmacist training, smoking cessation training, vaping was just being mentioned then, and I remember us feeling uneasy about it because there was no regulation in place. And never envisaged at that point, that we would have the problem that we have now with children. Another point, solving this public health crisis will help to solve the serious environmental issues until the national ban is in place, which hopefully is passed after consultation. We need to work with retailers to ensure that young people do not gain access to these products and ensure that retailers remain aware of their legal responsibilities. Vapes were never intended to be a lifestyle product for children and young people, but that is what they've become. We have a duty to protect our children and young people and to halt and reverse this public health emergency. If not, we're storing up a whole new generation of nicotine addicts and a national health tsunami. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Members, can we agree the notice of motion on page 60 from Councillor Reynolds and Councillor Armstrong? Thank you. Members, I now intend to put the council into private session. Councils in Inverclyde. Mr. MacDonald, please.
Through you, Provost, as members will be aware, officers have been conducting a review of the scheme for the establishment of community councils in Inverclyde. It's a matter that's been before you in previous special meetings of 1st December and 15th of May. Members will also be aware from the previous reports of the staged consultation process that's involved, the most recent of which sought comment on a proposed new scheme and map of proposed community council boundaries. This is in accordance with the decision on the 15th of May. That consultation closed in mid-August, and this report seeks to update members on the outcome of same and allow members to consider the responses received and to bring forward officer recommendations on the next steps in the review process. The report provides officer comments on the consultation feedback, the thinking behind the form of scheme officers are now recommending be taken forward, particularly where that varies from the consulted on at stage 2, and the follow-up and monitoring officers proposed should a scheme in the presently proposed form be adopted in due course. If the recommendations in this report are approved, officers will take forward a further 4-week consultation on the scheme as set out in this report as being the final draft of an amended scheme the Council proposes to adopt. A report will then be brought to a future special meeting on the outcome. I remind members that as this decision, the decision sought in this report relates to a proposed amendment of the scheme that it requires to be passed by a resolution of at least a 2/3 majority of those present and voting. Myself and my colleague Mr Scott from CLD are happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Cassidy?
Thank you, Provost. And I don't have any questions, just like to make some comments on the report. I will want to put record that my thanks as a Community Council champion to Peter Donald, our Community Council liaison officer, Hugh Scott and his team of communities, in particular me and Callum Cleland for their work in this review, and of course the wider CLD team who are working on it as well. And I also want to put record my thanks, I'm sure colleagues across the chamber, all of our community councils and all community councillors across Inverclyde for the work they do each year representing their communities. This report before us today represents the end of the second stage of our 3-stage review. Some might say it's the most controversial stage of the review. I've seen it said that this council is forcing proposed boundary changes on community councils, but I and this council couldn't have been more clearer a number of months ago when we agreed to start the second stage review. These proposals that were out to consultation were not the final plan, they weren't the final changes, they were really proposals that we wanted to consult on. And at that stage, we meant that in every sense of the word. It was genuine consultation. We wanted to hear the views of the public and community councils on these proposals. We've had over 1,000 terms responses to this consultation from across the community, providing us with our range of views. We've also had representation from the Association of Community Councils as well. And all of us in this chamber, you have saw the feedback from those responses, and the briefing we had a few weeks back, we had a positive discussion around that. Following all of that, we now have a set of recommendations before us, which is Community Council Champion I fully support and endorse. I believe these recommendations are the best ones to go with to reflect the views that we have had over this stage of the process. Of course, I think we all understand there's always risks when it comes to proceeding with the review. There's a risk in continuing with the 11 community councils, but there's also a risk in looking to change community councils and their boundaries. But I believe at this present moment, leading 11 community councils, sticking with them is the right thing to do. And it's also right that 2.4 in the recommendations that provide officers with the ability to bring forth the report and the potential for a further review should we end up without community council elections, without community council, following next year's elections. There have been several positive outcomes during this whole process. We've seen the establishment of association community councils, which is something that I worked on before being elected last year, and as champion, I'm proud to see start up. It's been great to all the existing community councils around the table, cooperating with each other, sharing ideas, and taking an active role in shaping community councils going forward in the future in Inverclyde. I also welcome the association's willingness to work with officers to promote community councils and stimulate interest in community council areas which do not currently have representation. With several positive changes have been made to strengthen and enhance community councils in the future. Many of those proposals came direct from community councils themselves, and it's positive to see at 4.4 in the report that 55 community members have expressed an interest in being more involved in the local community council, and I know officers are contacting them to discuss opportunities to encourage their engagement. Finally, I'd encourage members of the public who might be watching this to engage with your community councils, attend meetings, share ideas, bring forth the issues that matter most to you. Your voice matters, and it's through your active participation that we can drive the wheel of change and build a better future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Councillor David.
Thanks, Lois. And thanks to Councillor Cassidy for all the work you've done as community council champion as well. I mean, we've had an extensive consultation here. We've had a lot of responses to the consultation. There's clearly a strength of feeling among some of the existing community councils, community councillors about the proposals that were brought forward. So I don't have any difficulty in terms of listening to that view and given the having boundaries and another chance to go forward in the spirit of compromise. I still remain firmly of the view that the artificial division of Port Glasgow into two community councils, one term Port Glasgow West and one term Port Glasgow East, is simply nonsensical, to be perfectly honest. I think there is an identity in Port Glasgow which is Port Glasgow, not whether you're in the East or in the West. There might be an up and a down, but there's certainly no an East and a West division in Port Glasgow. But I understand the strength of feeling from the current Port Glasgow West community councillors. They tell me there's interest, officers tell me they're interested in potentially forming a Port Glasgow East Community Council. I look forward to seeing the outcome of that process, and I hope there's a Port Glasgow East Community Council formed. But I personally still remain of the view that a single community council for Port Glasgow would be a stronger community council, more representative of the whole of the town. But as I had to admit defeat before with Councillor Flaherty in the back many years ago, I'll accept defeat at this point in time. And I genuinely hope we are successful in forming 11 community councils, because as I said before when we discussed this, those areas where there are no community councils formed are the areas that most need community council. And if this fails and we don't secure community councils in those areas, we absolutely have to revisit it and no wait another 5 or 10 years before revisiting it.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you. I think there's, with respect to Port Glasgow, yes, I agree with many of the comments made by Councillor McCabe. I just want to there's always been a bit of toing and froing with respect to changing boundaries, etc. And I note there's no maps, etc. on the proposed 11, and that will be to be confirmed. One of the changes I did think was positive that was proposed with respect to the boundary between Port Glasgow, now East Community Council, and Kilmacombe and Quarriers, proposed Kilmacombe and Quarriers Community Council, in which previously the boundary for that Kilmacombe Quarriers went hard up to the house in Port Glasgow, but now the
the proposed map for be seen for the Port Glasgow joined up community council would be that there was actually a bit more of a buffer around Port Glasgow with respect to the community council. I'm just wondering if officers can confirm that that buffer will remain in any map drawn up for the East Port Glasgow Community Council.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes, through you, Provost. So the proposal we're putting forward is that there is no change to the community council boundaries. So the boundaries remain as at the 2011 scheme. So it would be, so that's per the recommendations. If we were to look at further changes, then that would need to be something that would be put forward by yourselves if that's what you're looking for. And we could revisit the maps if that was desired.
Yeah, in a year's time. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Provost. Just actually echo what Councillor McCabe has already said. Completely agree that we do have areas of Inverclyde that are the most deprived parts of this authority and parts of Scotland that haven't got coverage at all. And we've had a lot of discussion about how this is going to work and how things are going to go. And we know that there's work for officers to do. I just want to explicitly put forward the notion of two distinct strands of work. Yes, there's work to be done with the existing community councils to strengthen them, and decide what's happening with them and bring back a review in a year's time, but there is also a distinct channel of work that's required for those areas which are geographically laid out but have no coverage at all, and arguably that's more important, but it needs to be equally resourced, I guess, is the point I'd like to make, Provost. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor McVeigh.
Yes, thank you, Provost. Can I associate myself with Councillor Cathy's comments regarding the hard work of the staff? I know they've had a lot of work and they deserve credit for that. But Provost, just one point on one of the positive things that's come out of this is the Association of Inverclyde Community Councils. I think that's a benefit, and I think, and I know from the report that we're going to be bringing back another report within a year, and I've just asked that officers confirm that they will liaise with that group, because there are still some debate, discussion, anomalies with what the boundaries are going to be, and I think it would be very useful to get a steer from them as if we can get a final decision or if we can get some agreement before it comes back here. I'm just looking for that confirmation, Provost. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. Mr. McDonald, we'll give you the last word.
That sounds ominous. Absolutely, we will be continuing to engage with the association as part of the process, and hopefully we'll be involving them in support that's developed for the community councils. And yes, any further proposals that were to come back.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. Can we agree the recommendation? Thank you. I would just like to thank everybody for their attendance here today. It's a long session. Thanks to officers and thanks to our secretary and staff. Thank you, everybody.